Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, good Tuesday, June 30th. Glad you're with us here. Larry Smith, SportsIQ. Good conversation coming up. We're going to talk about money in a lot of ways. If you are into sports and the financial side of it, today is a good day to kick back and just listen. We're going to talk about a bit later the WNBA in terms of the Caitlin Clark situation, how that could affect the bottom line later. That's coming up in a bit. NFL valuations as well. If you haven't looked, the NFL makes a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money. And it's really gone up significantly here in recent years. We'll talk about that. Also, our friend Michael LeRoy from University of Illinois. He is the now he will tell you, because we've had him on the show before, he will say that he's not an expert in NIL and all things like that. But the folks who follow this stuff say that he is. It's been 1 year since the House deal went in, House versus NCAA settlement, July 1 of last year. So 1 year right away. How's that going right now for colleges? We'll talk about that coming up. A couple of headlines before we get to it. NBA free agency opening tonight. A lot of speculation that the Warriors may be trying to make a major move, maybe bring in LeBron James and then Anthony Davis. Now, a lot of pieces on the board have to be moved, but some speculation after Draymond Green, the veteran, declined his player option that was valued at $27.7 million, maybe looking to restructure his deal to clear some room for LeBron. Still would have to make a deal with Anthony Davis, do some other things. Steve Kerr, the coach, already assigned a 2-year extension, so he's here for 2 more seasons. Of course, there's Steph Curry. They did keep Kristaps Porzingis, a 2-year, $40 million deal, according to ESPN, to stay in Golden State. He had a nice second half of the season last year after that trade from Atlanta. Ja Morant is headed to Portland, the 2-time All-Star. No longer a Memphis Grizzly, as the Blazers send Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray to Memphis. And so now let the Cameron Boozer era begin in Memphis, the number 3 overall pick. Morant, I was a big fan of his coming out of college at Murray State. Felt he could be really the next big superstar. It has not developed. Off the court stuff, injuries. He's played only 79 games in the last 3 years. Now, Ja Morant is only 26 years old. He still has 2 years left on a contract worth about $87 million. Can he find new life in the Pacific Northwest? We'll all be watching. Malik Beasley and Ed Davis indicted in an alleged sports gambling scheme. Davis arrested on Monday. Beasley reportedly will turn himself in this week. Beasley allegedly lost millions and even agreed to manipulate his stats for at least 4 games while he was with the Milwaukee Bucks during the 2023-24 season. Again, this is all according to the indictment. Tonight, the WNBA Commissioner's Cup tips off, Las Vegas and New York. Asia Wilson is out with the right leg injury. 7th missed game in 7 seasons. She is Miss Durable. She scored 30 points, grabbed 15 rebounds in the Aces win over Chicago on Sunday. That's the 8th time she has hit those numbers in her career. That is a WNBA record. Already a 4-time league most valuable player. Leads the league this season in scoring with 25.7 points per game, going after a 5th MVP title. Right now, she is a front runner for that. There is no question about it. So we'll be watching that game, Aces and Liberty, tonight in the Commissioner's Cup. Time now for today's moment of awe and an illustration of just how valuable NFL franchises have become. You already know the National Football League has its origins in an automobile showroom in Canton, Ohio, now the site of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, more than 100 years ago. At the time, baseball was king. College football was growing in popularity, not to mention boxing and wrestling. As the league began to grow and expand, they added the Portsmouth, Ohio Spartans in 1930. But the team struggled, and on this day in 1934, they were sold, moved to Detroit, and renamed the Lions. The price tag, $7,900 in 1934. Fast forward to 1965. On this day, just 31 years later, the NFL grants an expansion franchise to an Atlanta insurance executive named Rankin Smith. The cost of the Falcons, a then record $8.5 million. Today, Forbes lists the Lions' value to be $5.4 billion, the Falcons' $6.4 billion, neither in the top half of the most valuable NFL franchises. And that's your moment of awe.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Yeah, welcome back here. Really quick World Cup notes, by the way. Round of 32 is underway. USA versus Bosnia-Herzegovina. That is Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Today, it is France against Sweden. The Ivory Coast takes on Norway. Mexico matches up with Ecuador. Again, all these the round of 32. How about four-time World Cup champ Germany? Ousted on penalties. The first ever World Cup loss for the Germans in a shootout as Paraguay advances instead to the round of 16. Also advancing Canada and Morocco moving on to the round of 16. As far as the round of 32, these matches again continuing today all the way through Friday. And so come Friday night, we will know the 16 teams that'll be in the round of 16. We mentioned a minute ago in the moment of awe about the valuation. Kind of crazy, right? That the Lions, on this day back in 1934, sold for less than 10 grand and now worth more than 5 billion. Falcons, 31 years later in 1965, 8.5 million is what the original owner paid for that. Now worth more than 6 billion. Neither of those, however, in the top half of the most valuable NFL franchises. Forbes last November ranking all 32 teams 1 through 32. There are 8 teams worth more than $8 billion, led by the Cowboys at $13 million. The Rams at 10.5. Giants are third at 10.1 billion. New England is fourth, $9 billion. Then followed by the Niners at $8.6 billion. The Eagles at $8.3 billion. The Bears at $8.2 billion. And that's before they build the new stadium, be it in Illinois or Indiana or wherever they're going to build it. The surprising on this, number 8 on the Forbes list, the New York Jets, $8.1 billion is what they are worth. You know, a team that really hasn't done much in decades. They don't have their own stadium. Of course, the Giants, are the main tenant there at MetLife. But the Jets, $8.1 billion. There you go. Just proves you don't have to be good to be rich. If you're the Jets. The Cowboys, though, they've been the NFL's top ranked or most valuable franchise since 2007. And they've been the world's number one sports franchise, most valuable sports franchise since 2016. The Cowboys have an operating income, according to Forbes, and what they did last November, of $629 million. That's more than 2.5 times the number 2 team, the Rams, at $244 million. Listen, you could like Jerry Jones, don't like Jerry Jones. Yeah, the Cowboys haven't won anything in 30 years. But man, this guy, since he took over this franchise, he's been a maverick. He does things differently. What's that about the rising tide lifts all ships or whatever? He's been a big part of the big money push, if you will, in the NFL. So the average valuation of NFL teams right now, as we stand right now, going into the 2026 season, according to Forbes last fall, $7.1 billion is the average value of an NFL team. What's amazing, a little history here. Each team reached the $1 billion valuation mark in 2014. That was the first time that every team was valued at $1 billion. Here's what's amazing is how quickly the appreciation of the value of these franchises has gone up. Just 10 years prior to this most recent, November 2025, 10 years prior to that, the Cowboys valuation was at $4.2 billion. Again, right now, $13 billion. So more than 300% it's gone up. The Rams were at 2.9, the Giants at 3.1, Patriots at 3.4, San Francisco 49ers were worth $3 billion in 2015. So those top 5 teams, still the top 5 now, different order, all increasing in value at least 250%. A big part of this, of course, is the media rights. Right now, the NFL is enjoying, they're in the middle of an 11-year, $110 billion package that runs through 2033. However, for most of the networks, except for ESPN, there's an opt-out clause after the 2029 season. Folks, it's 2026. That's just over 3 years away. So we could see a much bigger boost in that. And of course, so you ask, why is that? Why is the NFL so special? There are a number of reasons. Number one, let's start with the Super Bowl. It is the only TV date on the calendar when everyone watches, not just football fans, but non-football fans. And the non-football fans, are they watching the game? Not really. They're watching the commercials, which is why the commercial time, the ad time, is so expensive because of that. It's unbelievable. When you go back, the history of this, and I've mentioned this several times, that the NFL is so valuable because it's the one time, 3 hours or 6 hours on a Sunday, it's the one time in the week when you have a captive audience. And so you can promote not only the advertisers paying for those eyeballs, but you can also promote your own shows that you have going on during the week. Look back in the 1990s. Fox came on strong, stunned the world when they wrestled away the NFC contract from CBS back in 1994. Fox's primetime programming then during the week went up, X-Files, right? That 70s show, things like that. CBS's ratings during the week went down. Well, after a few years of that, CBS, the eyeball network, said enough of this. In 1998, CBS then wrestled the AFC contract away from NBC. And all those NBC shows, ER and Seinfeld and, Law and Order was always there. But those numbers all went down. There's a correlation to this. NBC then said, okay, enough of this. In 2006, they found a way to get back in the game, and they took the Sunday night programming away, which they've had now for the past 2 decades. That was actually on cable for almost 20 years, beginning on TNT back in 1987, and then ESPN taking over until 2005. So again, this is a thing that not only are you going to make those dollars, and it is a prime advertising spot for your national advertisers to spend a lot of money because it's a guaranteed audience. But you also get a chance to promote your evening shows, your other programming, and that, again, the rising tide lifting all boats kind of thing. The NFL does what it wants to do. And think about it. Now, no more is it just on Sundays and then Monday nights. They've now moved to Sunday a.m. The way the calendar is in 2026, you're going to have a 9 a.m. Kickoff somewhere in Europe almost every week of the year. It's become so prevalent. It used to be just the 3 games, just the 2 games on Thanksgiving. Then it became 3 games. Now you got games on Black Friday. Now we're going to have games on Thanksgiving Eve, the night before. Christmas Day was all NBA. Now the NFL is there as well. The TV money has gone up so much. 20 years ago, in 2006, the TV dollars, that package was just over $3 billion. And again, as you mentioned, right now, it is about $10 billion per season. So the NFL, the reason why they're so lucrative, because we watch. Doesn't matter who's on. Doesn't matter how the players change. Doesn't matter the stadiums. We watch on TV. Now, I'm curious to see how the college game, how that's going to change things. And that's where this Brendan Sorsby thing, I think, is really important. The integrity of the game is more important now more than ever. We just had in our headlines talking about the NBA guys with Beasley and Davis, and we had the scandal last year with Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier. How that's all going to play out. You have to keep the integrity of the game. And so let's see where this goes. How can college football and the proliferation of games on Saturdays, how will that manifest itself over time? As right now, it's a pretty good product every single Saturday afternoon. All right, stay with us. Much more to come here on the Sports IQ.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
If you're a diabetic, we have great news. You can end the painful finger sticks with a new CGM. Plus, they may be covered by Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. If you test and inject daily, you may qualify. Call US Med now to learn more.
800-390-5160. 800-390-5160. 800-390-5160. That's 800-390-5160.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Let's continue our conversation right now as we've been talking for the past several weeks, really about obviously the finances. Who am I kidding? Past few weeks. We talk all the time about the finances in sports. And so joining us once again here on the show, thrilled to have him join us, is Michael LeRoy. He is a sports law professor, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Michael, good to see you again. Last time we talked was earlier this spring, was back in March, really kind of the end of the college basketball regular season. We want to reach back out to you because we're now, this week, July 1, marks the 1 year mark of the House settlement going into effect. And that's, as we knew, was not going to cure all ills, but try to, again, to maybe put some guardrails in place in terms of the spending in college sports. Let me ask you the obvious question off front, the very generic question before we dive in. Has it made a difference in college athletics here in the first year?
Barry, it's good to join you. Thanks for having me back. It's made a difference in a surprising way. It was everybody who had their eyes on it thought it would stabilize the Wild West of NIL. I think President Moorhead, I believe that's his name, at the University of Georgia, put it well recently when he said that it has been a ruinous or disastrous experience. He used a very dramatic term. And so it has not worked out in the first year the way anybody thought, including myself. I view college athletics from the prism of athletes, and are they getting their fair share of the wealth they're generating? And they are not, in my opinion. And I thought the House settlement was a pragmatic settlement, but they're getting 22% of athletic department revenues over 10 years. When you compare that to professional athletics, the major sports leagues, they're all in the 50% range. So they're getting half a loaf. I'm not saying they should get 50%, but they should be getting more. Now, the biggest change, and then we can go from there, is what I would call the cap gap. This was supposed to put a lid on NIL spending across every athletic department that opts in at $20.5 million. Larry, as you know, and as fans know, about 10 to 12 football teams have $50 million rosters going into this season. How in the world did that happen? Now, we can explore that, but that to me is the signature failure of the House settlement in the first year. But again, it's the first year. We've got 9 more to go.
Right. And that's kind of, I think, where it feels like to the average fan that while you had this money there, every school allocated it in different ways. Mm-hmm. The bulk would go to football. Is that equitable? No. But then again, the revenue generated is not equitable. So you can make that argument and go from there. I think the average fan, and what I hear is that, well, there is no curtailing of writing checks for NIL. And to your point, it just because a school might say, well, we're going to allot 15% or 15 million of our house money, if you will, for football. That doesn't mean the football payroll doesn't reach 30 million.
So I've had a busy year researching and learned a lot. So let me just share with listeners on this point. What has happened? The cap gap comes from the following phenomenon. The players have an NIL contract. So if you want revenue sharing from the school, you're going to sign this contract. The player, the athlete, assigns an NIL license to the school. The school takes that license, and the University of Nebraska had a lead case, an arbitration case. But when I talk about Nebraska, I could be talking about any other Power 4 school. Here's what they did. They entered into a $302 million with Playfly Sports. They're a multimedia rights company. Playfly would get those NIL rights from the University of Nebraska, okay? And then Playfly would warehouse those rights. They're going to sell them off later. It depends on how good the athlete is. They're paying different amounts. The 5-star, 4-star quarterback is going to get most, and the 3-star tight end is going to get something, but not everything. But the simple point is, this was how we got to 50 million or 40 million or 30 million. If you look at the ledger, looking at the athletic department, it's not going to show more than $20.5 million. Okay. And depending on the strength of the multimedia rights company, we'll call them MMRs, depending on the strength of that relationship, University of Utah has a $400 million MMR deal with a private equity outfit called Otro. But regardless, and I think Illinois has one with Learfield. They're all over the map here. But that becomes an external method for paying the athlete. But now what happened with the Nebraska athletes, they submitted their deals to the College Sports Commission to be approved. Mm-hmm. They have to do that, okay? And any school that is complying, and I really do think, I know schools stretch, cheat, etc., but they are submitting. I'm hoping that if they're not even submitting deals, then we're never going to fix this. But right. They submitted, the athletes submitted the deals. And for 18 players, it was rejected. The arbitrator said the CSC properly rejected the deal. So that means that athletes are going to get smaller deals because they have to work for the multimedia rights company right now, Larry. They have to. So they, if you and I assign our rights to Playfly or Learfield, what that means is, for us to get our money, we have to post, we have to make social media posts, sit for interviews, do podcasts, sign autographs. But and I'm working on a paper right now that says, guess what? Those athletes are now employees of the multimedia rights companies because they have to perform a public-facing service. But in any event, I think we're going to get some shrinkage of the payroll, so to speak, because this College Sports Commission is I think properly interpreting the House settlement agreement, and they're going to say none of this funny stuff over here. And I have to think that an athlete who has to perform a service in kind right now, that is not the same value as we're going to hang on to this for the next 3 or 4 years until the athlete, goes on. So I'm sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, that's exactly what we're looking for is the explanation of this. As we're talking to Michael LeRoy, sports law professor, University of Illinois, about NIL and the finances. You bring up the CSC and this commission. Again, like you said, it is year one. It feels like rejecting only 18 deals. That's just a drop in the bucket compared to what we're talking about.
Well, it's such a great point. It is. I mean, it is a precedent. And now, all of this circles back, Larry, to the willingness of athletic directors to play by the rules, and I'm just going to call it out. Texas Tech has a very politically active former football player, Cody Campbell, worth $4 billion. And he's been bankrolling a lot of Texas Tech's sports. They've got a championship softball team. They've got a championship caliber football team up until the time of Brendan Sorsby. But my point is, when you've got, and he's also the chairman of the Texas Tech Board of Regents. So he's just hardwired into the fabric of the university. Now, and he's not the only example, but he's a prime example of what's wrong here. Because externally, when he's involved with President Trump and talking about saving college athletics, he's involved politically, he's saying, oh, gosh, we have to preserve what we had in the past. Meanwhile, this guy is writing so many checks to his school that they named the football field for him.
Right.
Pick one of those scenarios. Pick Wild West or pick we're dialing it back, but you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, exactly. We are talking with Michael LeRoy here. Michael, I'm going to take a quick commercial break if you would. I hope you can please stay with us. Michael LeRoy talking NIL. Quick timeout right here. We're back after this. We continue right now with Michael LeRoy. He's a sports law professor, University of Illinois. We were talking about the Texas Tech situation and Cody Campbell. I have a lot of places I want to go. I want to stick with that in the Brendan Sorsby case in terms of that's a couple of things. One, $5 million allegedly, that's what reportedly was his NIL deal. Number two, the gambling stuff there that it felt like Texas Tech was willing to, gamble themselves on him being a part of their active part of their team and their QB1 this coming season. I was somebody that said from the beginning that, there's so much right now in sports that you can get away with, right? And we can debate another conversation the reasons why. But the one fig leaf that sports holds on to is gambling. And right or wrong. And there should be a punishment if you harm another person or goodness kill somebody or whatever the case is. And you have those cases where athletes have done these bad things and still come back to play in their sport of choice and get paid for it. The one thing sports has held on to, the one fig leaf, was gambling. And I really felt if you take that away, oh my goodness, it's an ugly sight. I felt that the cooler heads prevailed in this, that maybe in a way the people almost had to kind of bully them into submission. And it turns out now the NFL doesn't want them. The CFL doesn't want them. But I want to kind of throw out the Brendan Sorsby situation and how you took all that in as it was going on.
Very much like you. I mean, if you don't have integrity in competition, there's a philosophical principle that the athletes will give their best effort. And they're not trying to lose a game or affect an outcome. And if you lose that, it's just a matter of time before you lose the integrity of the sport. Look, I grew up in a horse racing family, harness horse racing. So to keep it long story short, in the Chicago tracks in the 1970s, the mob was out there. They were fixing races. They approached everybody. They approached my dad, our trainer. We wanted no part of it. They were caught. 13 people went to prison. Look where harness racing is today. Now, there are a lot of factors, okay? But harness racing used to be a pretty vital sport. It's nothing today, and it saddens me. That's the future for any sport that compromises on gambling. There are plenty of people who in that industry who knew what was going on and didn't speak up because they went along, didn't rock the boat, or they were fearful of intimidation or violence. Now, let's take it back to the Sorsby case. I thought college athletics experienced a rare shining moment when everybody in the Big 12 said, we're going to boycott this whole school. And then other schools said, hey, we're going to boycott too. And it was amazing that Texas Tech, this gets back to Cody Campbell for a minute. He said, they just don't like a disruptor like Texas Tech football. We're the Indiana of, the Big 12. But at the end of the day, principle prevailed over everything else. Mm-hmm. And I don't think for a moment that the Kansas State or the Kansas, you name it, Oklahoma State people, I don't think they were being sour grapes about it. They were just what you said 5 minutes ago, which is we don't do it. And we'll use whatever it takes to get to a place where when Texas Tech plays a Big 12 school, everybody's trying their best to win. Mm-hmm. No questions. So that's a good moment. Now, having said that, Larry, there's a bigger, a deeper problem. The NCAA they do some good things occasionally. They did a survey of college students. So they had a consulting firm go out, but the consulting firm found that roughly 65% of current college students, this was 2 years ago, they place a bet of some nature on their phone. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is deeper than Sorsby and winning and Cody Campbell. This is really about our society is hooked on cell phones. Look, I'm trying to limit my time. I'm guessing you are too. But when you're looking at an sort of an immature brain, I'm saying that people don't really stop developing their cognitive and emotional abilities until they're 25, and they already have developed an addiction to cell phones in general, and now you're going to lay on gambling on top of it. We're not out of the woods yet with this situation. And I'm not saying other athletes will gamble, though I think that's probably the case. But what I'm saying is there are going to be other issues, such as what happens, God forbid, when you get people who are taking their lives over a ruinous, and I'm talking about college, university people who take their lives over a ruinous gambling addiction. I don't know how far-fetched that is, but I just worry about the nature of this addictive. It's a double addictive power, cell phone and gambling.
And it's funny. I was telling some young people that I work with who are much, much younger. You and I probably have kids this age. They had not heard the name Art Schlichter. And I said, listen, do yourself a favor, go Google. Here's how you spell his name. I recently reread his story because I hadn't thought about him in years. And oh my good, you talk about a top level talent. He was the number 4 pick in the draft and was the quarterback of the future for the Colts when they were in Baltimore, and could not, and had dozens of chances and threw away every single one of them. Now, am I saying Brendan Sorsby's the next Art? No, I am not at all. But to your point is that you don't know when the addiction is so deep that it can really ruin somebody's life for life. I mean, over a 40-year period.
Well, Larry, that is such a good comparison. I think they are similar, to be honest with you. I worry about Sorsby's future just from a human standpoint. I'm guessing it's just a guess. I'm guessing he's not going to have a snap of pro football experience. But the NFL has said, look, we'll look at you for the 2027 draft, but you've got to put everything in front of us. So he'll get some kind of consideration or hearing. And as long as we're on this subject, I have to say the fact that the NFL has a Vegas team now, okay? I mean, that would have been inconceivable 15, 20 years ago.
Sure.
But, now that pro sports is heavily embedded in Las Vegas, the leagues have wrestled with what does that mean for us? Mm-hmm. Now, my personal sense is that's such a slippery slope to get on. So I hope the guy has a good future in wherever it goes from there.
Yeah, I hope he gets some good counsel. It's one thing I did say, and I said either he's really stupid, really arrogant, or got bad counsel. And I think most people I say that to, they say, well, he got all three. He has a shot. He's got 10 months right now. Like you said, the NFL said, you weren't really honest with us. You never really kind of, threw yourself on your sword, if you will, with the NCAA. Why would we bring you here with our player conduct policy? He has 10 months now and has some considerable, means in the bank. I'm sure he got some kind of NIL money before this went south, that he can now go work on, repairing his image and getting ready for and proving that he's clear of this by April. And I hope he does that, like you said, not just for the athletic side and his professional career, but for himself as a person. I want to get very quickly another topic, the Darian Menza situation, where he was at Duke. He had a 2-year NIL deal that just went away, and now he's at Miami. It goes back to, again, these things that, well, you have a contract, so to speak, I'm using air quotes here, and yet maybe you don't. He not only leaves Duke, he goes to another ACC school at the same time to collect NIL money from there.
Yeah. So we'll see other versions of this. I think, first of all, if I can lay on a related topic, the new there's a proposed law, the Protect College Sports Act, which, if it passes, would allow only one transfer. So it's a possibility that the whole number of transfers will be diminished over time. But to get directly to Mensa, that's what we've got at the premium athlete level. And at least in the next year, we're going to see more of it. I think we need to talk about collective bargaining. And so collective bargaining is the method by which these professionalized college, I said leagues, conferences, their leagues should be regulating this. Pick your sport, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, women's, men's basketball. Collective bargaining has produced compromises that essentially boil down to this. For the first 3, 4, or 5 years of an athlete's professional career, the club has exclusive rights. After that, free agency. That would be such an elixir for the Power Four conferences. They would get to a sensible sort of balancing of the rights. So you can't hop around team to team to team. Caleb Williams, he's working out for the Bears after, I think, 2 years. But the first year was shaky, second year much better. But the point is, good draft picks. The Bears have had terrible first-round quarterbacks. Here they got lucky and they did it right, it looks like. But the point is, you're stuck. That's it. Unless you're so bad, you get cut. I think that's the long-term solution. So now I also had a private conversation with Mensa's attorney. And he didn't tell me, he gave me a hint that the hint was, we'll take care of it sooner rather than later. And I took that to mean there'll be a settlement of some kind. And he didn't go any farther than that. But, I know that person who represents him in this matter, and there's a player side to it. You're talking about somebody who has a life-changing agreement. I mean, you and I should have the blessing of a $5 million deal, and we have to walk from a $2 million deal or whatever, and maybe we have to pay $500,000 in damages to get out of it. Okay, well, we're dollars ahead. There's no assurance that Mensa is going to be a first-round draft pick. He's a nice quarterback. But, so there's a player side, but your question is aimed at the chaos. And the chaos is very unhealthy for us.
Yeah. I've got only about a minute left here, as I've already gone over time. 1 minute left. What do you think happens next in this journey we're on in the wild, wild west?
Yeah, I have had I'm uncanny in not predicting the future. So whatever I predict, it won't happen. My short-term focal point is the College Sports Commission. And I'm not a fan of this whole House settlement, but I do think, so I'm speaking objectively and skeptically, I think that they will help to stabilize the situation. We all want some stability, okay? Even I, as a player advocate, I want stability here because the system will fall on its own weight here. So I think the short term, it's trending more stable, and we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, it is. Well, listen, the good thing is it gives me an excuse to talk to you on a period. You answer my calls when producer Tony reaches out, and we really appreciate your insights. Michael, thank you. We'll leave it there. Obviously, there's so much more we can get to, but wait for next time. Enjoy your summer, and thank you for your insights as always. Thank you for your thoughts, and we look forward to next time.
Thank you for your time, Larry. Next time we'll have more fun.
We will. There'll be more to talk about. So, Michael, thanks so much. Michael LeRoy, once again, sports law professor, expert. And I told you in the very beginning that, he doesn't like to, other people call him the expert in this kind of stuff. And he bristles when I say that because he's a modest guy. But clearly, he's somebody who really is well-versed and well-learned in this. And we appreciate him spending time with us. Okay, quick time out. We've got more to come.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices on airline tickets are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts with over 500 different airlines, plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. The only way to learn more is make a free call. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next trip. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next trip.
Welcome back here to the show. Larry Smith, Sports IQ, along with the producer, Tony. And Tony, it's a topic you and I have been talking about now for really pretty heavy for a couple of weeks, although it's been there for a while right now. The issue of Caitlin Clark. And not is she a great player, not is she an MVP candidate, not is she the Pied Piper of this new wave of women's sports and the popularity of the WNBA. There's no question of any of that. But the question you posed to me, and I don't really have an answer for, and we'll kind of discuss it with all of our friends here. Does the WNBA have a Caitlin Clark problem? Is the question you pose, and it's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, it's an issue because you've got this great player, but there seems to be different camps. Does Caitlin Clark get too many calls? Do they call the games differently for Caitlin Clark? Do other girls try to pick on Caitlin Clark? Does she get taken advantage of? Does it seem like girls are trying to take her out, not want her to succeed? How about we just let them play and make sure that the officials are officiating the game properly and make sure the league is looking at each official and make sure their calls are what they need them to be. And if not, talk to them, coach them, train them to make sure they're looking for the right things. The WNBA has really become a very beautiful game of basketball if they'll clean up the holding, grabbing, clutching, all those other things. Yeah. If you watched Sunday night, the Valkyries and the Liberty, that was a great example of basketball. It was highly defensive without being overly physical. There weren't any confrontations. There wasn't any finger pointing. There wasn't any jaw jacking back and forth. It was all very clean, very well played basketball. And it was a pleasure to see. And I think the WNBA needs to do a better job of promoting those kind of games and get away from promoting personalities. Take the WNBA and start promoting the teams. That Mystics 4 overtime win the other night. Wow, what a fantastic ball game played by two really competitive teams.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where, and we've talked before, they were saying they were going to clean things up, but there does seem to be something with Caitlin that's just a polarizing figure. And we've talked before, the whole issue, I think it was last week, about Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. It's sort of like the Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird issue back in the early 80s. They had the college rivalry. It goes into the NBA. I think the conversation is not a bad one they have, but it's funny that Sophie Cunningham, since coming over after Caitlin's rookie year and has been now a teammate of hers for the past year plus, went on a podcast recently and said there's no question this goes on every night, that there are players targeting Caitlin, and she said the officials do nothing about it. But I wonder, I guess, in terms of to me, and Sophie's right there. You and I have talked about, we've seen physical play across the board. It's not necessarily directed at Caitlin, maybe because she is who she is, that there's more of that. There's more of there's more of a spotlight on the fouls that are committed toward her. And certainly the Alyssa Thomas incident last week was one that was wrong. She ended up serving a 1-game suspension against Toronto as they upgraded that foul after they reviewed it on Friday, and she sat out Saturday's game. Alyssa Thomas is no slouch. I mean, she almost averages a triple-double and is in the MVP conversation every single year. This isn't just some player trying to get an edge. This was a player that, look, what she did, was it wrong? Yeah, absolutely. Looking at it, she shouldn't have done that. But is it a thing against Caitlin or a thing that's more an overall problem?
Yeah, I think it was more of an overall issue. What you don't want to see, and what I don't want to see happen in the WNBA, is because there are some factions out there, and in their writing and in their speaking and on their shows, are trying to make this a white versus black issue. That the league is trying to protect the white face of the league, and some people are trying to make it a black versus white. Well, why don't they promote Angel Reese more? Why don't they promote this person more? Look, it just happens to be that she was a figure who really energized the sport. That's all it was. I don't think it's matter that she's white. It was just the way that she was able to play the game and hit those far shots and hit threes and carry an Iowa team that had never really had much success in women's basketball until she came along. They'd been okay, but they hadn't been anything much on the national stage. What would be a real shame for the WNBA is for this to become a black and white issue. It doesn't need to be that. That's not what this is. It's good players playing basketball, and they need to promote their teams in a better fashion where you're promoting the entire team and let the games play out that way. And I think that happens a lot in sports overall. We're always looking for players to promote instead of teams to promote.
Yeah. And I think and unfortunately in our society, there are people who would like to carry that narrative. I'm going to get too deep into that, but there's some who kind of wouldn't mind making it a race issue. And that's unfortunate as well. And I think that's where the WNBA needs to be very careful. This doesn't, devolve into that. You've got great players on both sides. You've got Paige Beckers, who just is playing so well. She's being compared on a level with Caitlin Clark in terms of her, number one overall pick, rookie of the year, has elevated Dallas in a very short amount of time. Obviously on the other side, there's Asia Wilson, who's considered the best player in the game today. One of the all-time greats in women's basketball history is doing what she's doing out in Las Vegas. CBS Sports had a story last week talking about this. And Clark, of course, missed most of her sophomore season with injury, her second season, right? I mean, she had all kinds of different, ankle injuries and knee injuries and just groin injuries, could never get on track. I think she maybe played only 13 games out of the 48-game schedule, whatever it seems like. This story on CBSSports.com said that she has been on the receiving end since she entered the league in 2024 of 9 flagrant fouls. That's the most towards any player in that time frame. Now, in the same story, Golden State's coach, Natalie Nakazi, who I believe was a coach of the year last year as she led the Valkyries to the first ever expansion team to reach the playoffs, said, in quote, in this story, she said last season, "We know that Caitlin Clark doesn't like physicality," end quote. So there's something here. It's not, we can't get into the players' heads and the coaches' heads, but it's sort of like the Detroit Pistons back in the 80s. They were a physical team, and if they knew you didn't like being physical, they would throw you even farther under the baskets when you decided to drive the lane.
Right. I mean, and that's just it. Look, if you can get an edge because you don't think somebody likes contact, if you think you can get in their head a little bit and have them thinking about, well, I don't really want to go into the lane. I'm going to get bumped. I'm going to get kneed. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. Then, the other team gains an advantage, a strategical advantage in how the game is being played. And there's no problem with that. It's just the way it goes. You have to adjust to that. And Caitlin will have to adjust to some of that. And that's really what it needs to come down to, is how is the game played rather than an issue of, what is the color of somebody's skin. There are great players, black and white, in the WNBA, and the game is being played at such a wonderful level that really needs to be where the league has to try to maintain the focus of this and make sure the narrative stays on that, because that's where it needs to be.
So many great players, so many great teams doing things right now. Olivia Miles, what she's doing, number 2 overall pick, what she's doing, leading Minnesota as a rookie. Obviously, talk about Paige Beckers, Atlanta, the Atlanta Dream Team, what they're doing. So many great stories here. Boy, WNBA, we beg of you, don't get caught up in the mess. Clean this stuff up. It's a beautiful game. Everything is going on the up. And let's try to keep on that kind of trajectory. All right, we will leave it there for this show. We appreciate our guests stopping by. I appreciate you as well. Make this a fantastic day. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the SportsIQ.
Thanks for listening to SportsIQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.